For the first time since 1928, Vanderbilt and Texas are set to square off on the gridiron. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Commodores and the Longhorns. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Guys, go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. That's prizepicks.com, promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. The Vanderbilt Commodores and Texas Longhorns set to do battle in Nashville, Tennessee. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, our official sponsor, Prize Picks, will send us out to First Bank Stadium, Nashville, Tennessee, to watch these two teams do battle in the latest edition of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. As we break this one down, I am Chris Phillips. Helping me do so is my good friend, Cole Thompson. He joins me once again. Cole, what's going on, my man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this game with you.
You missed something, Christopher. You missed something when you were breaking down the Vanderbilt Commodores. The number 25 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores for the first time since 2014. Vanderbilt has a number attached to their name. And also, for those of you that are unfiltered with the SEC Unfiltered Tour, they have an opportunity to take the field. And I'm not talking about those Commodores headlined by the one and only Diego Pavia. I'm talking about those at First Bank Stadium that bleed the gold and black. Those who believe in anchor down. Because so far, Chris has batted 1,000 over the last month of seeing tournament-style charades occur in the middle of a football field. Are we going to watch another upset, another goalpost end in the Cumberland River, or is this the end of the streak? Who's to say? Who's to say? But we are in for a very interesting game, and a game that I think really could be decided in one of two facets, and it wouldn't shock me either way how it ends up going.
Yeah, Cole, addressing the elephant in the room as we get this thing going, I didn't think we'd reach a point this season where one fan base would be reacting with jubilation and the other would be essentially begging me not to go to their game, because we have been a nightmare for a visiting team trying to get a big road win. In case you have missed it, over the last 4 games, as Cole mentioned, 4 weeks ago, we were in Tuscaloosa for the Alabama-Georgia game. A field was not rushed, but a game that came down to essentially the final play of the football game. The following week, we go to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Tennessee. Arkansas is a double-digit underdog. They pull the upset. We rush the field. The following week, we go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. LSU, Ole Miss, nearly a pick'em game, but LSU, a slight home underdog. Of course, we all know what happened. They get the win in overtime. The field is rushed there at Death Valley. And then this past weekend, we go to Rocky Top. Tennessee, who yet again, another home underdog, gets the win. The field is rushed. And this previous weekend, yours truly is smoking a cigar there in Knoxville, Tennessee, on the field. So, will it happen again? Things have got to end at some point. Not saying it will, but let's go ahead and get that out of the way and address that elephant in the room. If the SEC Unfiltered Tour calls any indication, we are in for a wacky game at First Bank Stadium. There's no other way to put it. Again, this game, guys, taking place 3:15 Central Time kickoff on the SEC Network there in Nashville, Tennessee at First Bank Stadium. Cole, side note, by the way, my first ever game at Vanderbilt. I've been to Nashville one of the time, have never seen Vandy's campus, have never seen their stadium. Really excited to take in a game day. And like you mentioned, Cole, how fitting it is that when we go, Vanderbilt is now ranked in the AP Top 25. Some would argue a week too late.
A week too late.
The Texas Longhorns are a 17.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 53.5. Cole, one of the more fun things when Texas and Oklahoma joined the league was the series history of this series. Vanderbilt leads the all-time series, Cole, 8-3-1. And as I mentioned top of show last meeting, 1928. Who can forget that 13-12 classic that Vanderbilt won, again, by a 1-point margin of victory? So, again, been a long time. It's a really fun talking point. And as we dive into this game, this matchup, Cole, like you mentioned, and I don't think it's going to necessarily affect Vandy. I don't know if it's something we really talk about as like a key in this game or or what have you, because I think this Vanderbilt team mentally has shown after you beat a number 1 Alabama, and then you follow that up the right way. That was the big question, going on the road to Kentucky, getting the win. I don't think Vandy being ranked is necessarily going to change their mindset or change the way they prepare or anything of the sort, but I think it is worth highlighting. Credit to Clark Lee, credit to Vanderbilt football, sitting at 5-2, finally ranked in the top 25, first time since 2014. Cole, to your point, what an accomplishment for Clark Lee and company. And now you come into this game, Cole, and I found myself right before we hit live and started this conversation, where does this rank amongst like biggest games in Vanderbilt football history, at least on the home field or certainly in the Clark Lee era? This has got to be right up there at the top. When you think about the opportunity at hand, what it would mean if Vanderbilt was able to pull off another upset like this has got to be one of the biggest games I think we've seen in Vanderbilt football history.
I would say it's probably top 5 all time. I do think that win against Alabama carries a little bit more weight because number 1, it was against the number 1 team. And number 2, really everyone kind of just threw it to the wayside. Like, oh, Alabama, it's the same old Alabama. It's the same old script day. It's the same old Crimson Tide. The mantra, the aura, the energy that is Jalen Milroe will be good. And for 4 quarters of action, there was no denying that the Commodores were actually the bullies. They were the indicators. They were the ones throwing the first punch and the haymakers, and they were making Alabama scream uncle. And nobody expected that. And now we're going back and we're looking at Alabama and we're saying, well, there were flaws in the USF game. There were flaws in the Georgia game in the second half. There were flaws in the South Carolina game. There were flaws in the Tennessee game. Texas at this point, it feels like that they lose a little bit of momentum because they're no longer number 1. But it's still Texas. It's still the big Longhorn logo. I mean, there are people out there that are saying that Texas isn't ready for the SEC. Texas is not ready to compete with the big boys in the conference. That Texas A&M actually runs the Lone Star State, not those that reside on the 40 acres. So it's a big game for Vanderbilt because of if they win this one against another top 5 team in their backyard, where they're a double-digit underdog. There's no denying that the program culture shift this offseason was so poignant that now they feel like that they are in competition for, I would at least say, middle of the pack of the SEC, if not upper echelon middle of the pack. And I think the more important part is, Chris, they're trying to get to bowl eligibility. And if they get this win, that secures bowl eligibility. And it's before the month of November, where there still are countless teams that we're talking about, teams like South Carolina, teams like Oklahoma, teams like Kentucky, that are probably in the same category of terms of overall roster construction that are nowhere near that level. And here's Vanderbilt, a team that we kind of, as a joke, pick to win the conference title every year. There's 1 or 2 votes, which, by the way, I'm going to make it a rule. You still have to unveil who you are at this point. Now you really have to unveil who you are at this point because of how well they're playing. But with a game like this, if they get that win, they're bowl eligible against 2 top 10 ranked opponents in victories in their backyard. I mean, there's no other way to put it. There have been bigger games in the history of Vanderbilt football, but in recent memory, I think it would be top 3. This year, I would say it's only number 2 because you took down the number 1 team. But besides that, again, you're really picking straws at this point of where you want to rank this in the upper echelon of games out in Commodore country.
And Cole, as we talk Vanderbilt, and they're riding high right now in the top 25, again, first time in a decade, we have to go to the other side. How is Texas feeling right now, and how are they going to respond to that battering they took at the hands of Georgia this previous weekend in Austin? Again, that was a game that obviously we had circled since it was announced that Texas was going to join the SEC, but certainly since the summer, and you looked at that game, okay, this is, with Texas's quote-unquote softer schedule, and, Michigan's kind of ended up being what they are, and maybe some other matchups, Mississippi State obviously has gotten better, but that wasn't a measuring stick or a litmus test. That game against Georgia, Cole, was essentially going to serve as that, and now you've got to lick your wounds, and you're kind of wondering, okay, like, who are we really? Like 38 yards in the first half against Georgia. We got dominated for a lot of that game. Obviously, Texas able to storm back in that one. But it's a bit of a different vibe right now for the Longhorns as they lick their wounds coming in this game in Nashville. And as we've seen, Cole, in college football, those types of intangibles, I think, matters. Again, I'm not questioning Steve Sarkisian. Is he going to get his team up off the mat? Are they going to be excited to play? All of their goals and everything they have are in front of them. But I'm curious about mentality of this football team. You come out with a certain energy level against a team like Georgia. Obviously, you're fired up at home, excited. You get beat in a little bit, you get punched in the face. And as the great Mike Tyson once said, everybody's got a plan or they get punched in the face. Now I wonder, Cole, how does Texas get back up and can they throw that second jab or two and rebound the right way?
Can I just remind everybody real fast that in the year of 2024, where college football decided to add a 12-team playoff and say, you know what, we're going to have a Big Ten matchup at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday because we have a school from California out there. Indiana is ranked inside the top 15 and is undefeated. Both of the military schools are undefeated heading into their matchup. Right now, it feels like Washington State is not getting enough love. Vanderbilt is ranked to beat the number one team in the country. We also still have to talk about other programs that are on the come up, like the Mormons out in Provo, Utah, being undefeated. Rocco Becht, who, by the way, I didn't realize was related to Anthony Becht, beat his dad's school to oblivion on a night that he was honored. College football is weird this season. And you know what's not the weirdest thing of all? Is that we overhype Texas, as we have done for years, and Georgia decided to go ahead when their backs were against the wall and deliver sheer violence down on the 40 acres. 10 tackles for losses, 7 sacks on the afternoon. On top of that, they held the rushing attack to 1.1 yards per game. There was no life on offense through the passing attack in the first half. And yes, while you did get a ability to see this defense kind of step up, Jahdae Barron gets a big-time pick. You also watch as you see the offensive line. You also watch as you see Quinn Ewers come back and get 2 touchdown drives. The fans start fluttering the field with trash because they're pissed off that they didn't get their way on what, in my opinion, looked like more so an offensive pass interference than defensive pass interference. Regardless, we're not going to get into that. The weirdest part is not seeing Texas lose to Georgia at home. It's nowhere near that. Or Georgia lived up to the statement. The weirder part will be, how does Texas respond now in the SEC after the way we've watched them play all year? Because there is a little bit of concern in terms of what was the Fool's Gold. Very similar to what we saw with Ole Miss at the start of the season, where kind of went up against lackluster competition, never really had to put their foot on the gas. And the second that they were challenged, they couldn't live up to the expectations. Is that what we're going to see from Texas? Or, again, is Texas built like a program similar to Alabama underneath Nick Saban? Similar to what Kirby Smart has down in Athens, similar to what we saw for the last few years in Ann Arbor with Michigan, where they can lose a game to a quality opponent. And let's just get this out of the way. Georgia is the ultimate quality opponent for anybody in college football. It is a great litmus test to see where you are. Or are they going to lay dormant and once again fall into that conversation of, well, they're a college football playoff team. Well, they're a team that can make it to the dozen dance. But when you get them there on a Saturday afternoon, all bets are off. That is what we will figure out this weekend. How quickly can you respond, regroup, and not allow the fundamental mistakes in the first half of that game eventually hurt you in the first half of this game away from DKR, which, again, another big element to the test. You're not going to have the home crowd in front of you, even though it honestly may look like more so the Red River shootout with 50-50 with Commodore fans and Longhorn fans. Because when Alabama won, it was like 98-2 in favor of the Commodore. It was very sad seeing how few fans actually flooded the field and then took the goalposts to the Cumberland River. I don't think that they're going to be having that this weekend, Christopher, if I'm being completely honest.
Cole, you mentioned the quarterback position in that game with Texas, Georgia. What do you make of that? Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. That game may have only just reaffirmed that Quinn is the right guy, right? I thought Arch, did what he could, but Quinn comes back in. I thought played pretty decently. Your thoughts on the quarterback position in Austin right now? Again, you feel like you got 2 good ones, but I think Quinn Ewers is the clear-cut number 1 guy.
The problem is that Quinn Ewers doesn't have that speed element with his legs. And what was really interesting is that Arch was the only thing that was actually moving on the ground. So if that's the case against top-tier defenses, and let's give credit where credit's due. Vanderbilt is not an elite defense, but it is a freaking damn good one. It is at the level of freaking damn good. There's only 2 more levels that we go up on my radar to where we have that. Oh my God, I have no idea why my phone just went off like that. Whatever. Just go roll with the punches. It's probably Diego Pavia actually calling to go ahead and get that NIL deal done. Regardless,
Thompson Tech Red Wolves.
But Quinn is the guy because of Quinn has earned the right to be the guy. And I think that the point of the matter is that regardless of who you trot out there against that defense, if the defense decided to wake up and choose violence, they were always going to get eviscerated. They were. And that was something that we did not plan for. That was something that I don't think Texas planned for. They were dealing with multiple injuries leading up to the game. They were dealing with players that were playing inconsistent, especially in the secondary. And so Quinn at this point, I think, gives you the best chance to win. I think Quinn also at this point has earned the right to be able to get that next step forward, to be the dude that gets to carry the rock, gets to be able to respond first. The good news is if Quinn gets injured, if you're starting to see similar sluggish performances where the offense is kind of anemic, then you feel comfortable turning to Arch Manning. And that's ultimately a good thing. But those out here who are trying to start this narrative that, well, is it Quinn? Is it Arch? Is it great? Like, can we stop? Can we stop? Can we stop until we have actually a better baseline of where we are? I will say, and Dave and I have talked about this, what's going to be really interesting is seeing how the locker room responds to that move. Because if there is going to be the opening up Pandora's box in the sense of, well, maybe one wide receiver feels more comfortable catching a ball from Arch Manning and Arch isn't playing, which means it hurts his reps. Or maybe another wide receiver feels comfortable catching the ball from Quinn and they decide to turn to Arch Manning and his production goes down. So there is that locker room cohesiveness that sometimes does evolve. I don't think this is the week where it would happen. I think right now, again, until given more of an actual track record, until given more of an actual baseline, it's Quinn's job. It's Quinn's job to lose. The good news is that if Quinn does lose the job, it likely is because of you feel so confident in number 16 taking on over as number 1.
To your point, I didn't think about that either. The locker room dynamic of how, certain guys feel about that. I think whether you just strap it up, you go play no matter who's under center. But to your point, you have open Pandora's box. The chatter is going to be there no matter what, especially if you get off to a slow, sluggish start. Again, we all know what the reaction is going to be. On that note, again, Clark Lee, I thought what he did such a good job of, we mentioned the Alabama game, Cole, and that was, you might recall, that was the week, Alabama, that was following the week they played Georgia. Mm-hmm. Now, Bama won that football game. Texas obviously lost their matchup. But Bama rolls into Nashville. I thought Clark Lee did a really good job of taking some things Georgia did, implementing them, and it gave Bama trouble. I wonder if he's able to do that again, looking at the game plan in which Georgia implemented. Can the defense copy Georgia's plan? I thought Georgia, obviously, the first half, they got those short fields. They set the offense up for success. And again, you're trying to pull an upset. You're a 17-plus point underdog getting short fields for the offense. We can talk about the Vanderbilt offensive side of things. It all starts, obviously, with Diego Pavia. He is the straw that stirs the drink. But you look at what they did, Cole, against Alabama to pull that upset. Had a pick six, forced turnovers. I think it's going to take a similar script to pull off that Texas size of an upset again. So I wonder again what, the matchup between Clark Lee and Steve Sarkisian, the way they're scheming this thing up, I think is going to be really, really interesting. Can Clark Lee, kind of an interesting scenario, follow that up again? Look at what Georgia's plan was. Again, personnel is different. We know that. But can he implement that plan, see some things they did on film and implement that in this game and maybe have similar success?
The other thing that you have to give a tribute to is that when Texas played last week against Carson Beck, they were able to force 3 turnovers, but partially that was the fact because of Carson Beck is known for being a pocket passer. He's got a little bit of mobility to his game, but more so he wants to stay in the pocket and deliver clean strikes down the field, which did benefit Jahdae Barron with a couple of interceptions. Diego Pavia, you have to credit his legs. That's a big deal. He is one of the team's leaders, not just in terms of on the field personnel, but also in rushing yards after attempt and rushing touchdowns. And if you have struggles at times going up against Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier, well, is that going to carry on over with Cedric Alexander and now number 2, who also can maneuver outside the pocket, wait to find a clean strike across the middle of the field, and target his tight end the way that Quinn Ewers does with Gunnar Helm in Eli Stowers, that then creates a first down opportunity. So the thing that you're going to have to really schedule for in this matchup, if you are Clark Lee, is finding your one-on-one opportunities to either tell Diego Pavia, here's where you can attack the outside protection, here's where you can target one of your wide receivers, or here's where we just want you to tuck and run. I think, again, the biggest thing that has been a blessing, really probably the most consistent element in the SEC this year, is Vanderbilt's ability to live in third and manageable, where Tim Beck can open up the playbook, have 19 different ideas running around inside of his head and go, okay, bing, 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 we're going to go with play 18. And it automatically works because if they're not shooting themselves in the foot to where they have to only throw it, where they have to trust what is going to be a quick ground game. They're putting themselves in 3rd and 3 and 2nd and 4. So that way the playbook can be more advanced. It can be more open. It can be more fluid. And it gives them opportunities to catch the defense slipping. It did against Kentucky. It did against Alabama. It did against Ball State last week. It's worked all year to where you have watched this team be able to kind of play in their breadbasket. Now, on the flip side for Texas, here's the one thing that I will say about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is no finesse. There's no flash. There is no flair to their overall persona when it comes to their offense. They are a team that tells you, we're going to do this. We're going to do it really well. We're going to look really well while doing it. Make us have a second punch when you know that we don't have it. So that is a game plan for Pete Kwiatkowski, for Johnny Nansen, for them to be able to look at Diego Pavia, Cedric Alexander, Eli Stowers, their passing attack, and say, this is where we can slow down or eliminate what works for Vanderbilt. And I think it really does start with Diego Pavia. And more importantly, it starts by making him have to throw. The last thing that you can afford to do in this game is allow number 2 to be the number 1 rusher and start winning in the open field for gains of 7, gains of 11, gains of 12, gains of 9. And now we're looking at either 2nd and 1 or a fresh set of downs, and the clock is rolling because Texas does have the personnel that could easily come back and strike. They have the personnel that could easily find a way to get on over the tops of defenses, catch the breadbasket for 60-yard scores. But you don't want to live in that lifestyle. In fact, there has been a great game plan in place, I think, for Vanderbilt in this on where to attack on the weaknesses of Texas, whether it be in the second level of the defense, whether it be in the secondary, whether it be on the offensive line when you're looking at the defense. But there also is a great script for Texas to be able to kind of eliminate some of the things that have really worked for Vanderbilt up to this point and probably kept them afloat in the college football playoff. And also, let's not get this too carried away, but Chris, still in the hunt for a SEC championship bout for this moment. So there's scripts for both of them. Which one can capitalize and make the most of those plays?
On that note, Cole, I will say the mentality thing, we mentioned it earlier, but what you have to love about Diego Pavia and this Vanderbilt team, and I think obviously him being the leader and the heartbeat of the team, we talked about, Texas, all their goals in front of them, playoff, SEC title, everything. We're not worried about that. Vandy, we talked about they can get to bowl eligibility. I think if you ask Diego Pavia or anybody else, they're like, no, we can get to the playoff. That's what they're thinking of. So we haven't felt this type of aura from a Vandy squad in a very long time, if ever. You mentioned, though, I think you've got to make, to your point from the Texas perspective, you got to make Diego Pavia one-dimensional. Much easier said than done. I don't feel like anybody's really been able to completely solve this offense. I'm not saying it's an offense that scores 50 a game, but Tim Beck and company, that matchup between Tim Beck and Pete, Kwiatkowski?
Pete Kwiatkowski.
Kwiatkowski, yes. Tim Beck, Pete Kwiatkowski. I want to make sure I pronounced it correctly. I think that matchup's interesting. Tim Beck has been able to keep people off balance all year with that little option thing they run. And obviously Diego Pavia is the perfect trigger man for that offense. They've got weapons on the outside. Again, I think Vandy did a really, really good job in the portal, bringing guys in. So important for Texas to win at the point of attack, but also be disciplined. Like you mentioned, Cole, you have to make Diego Pavia one-dimensional. If he's able to run the football, and I was looking actually the splits, Cole, just before we went live here, you get inside 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, Diego Pavia actually very, very good on 3rd down, throwing the football. It's obviously, and maybe it goes without saying, but those 3rd and longers, you're going to make it really, really tough on the Vanderbilt offense. But how do you do that? You have to stop quarterback run game. If he's able to run the football, they're going to be getting in a lot of 2nd and 3s, 2nd and 2s, 3rd and 1s, where it just opens this thing wide up for Tim Beck to do sort of whatever he wants with the Texas defense, and I think really get them on their heels. That's how you put together drives. That's how you see Vanderbilt in the fourth quarter in this football game, and I think that's one of the big keys for Vandy to be in this game in the fourth quarter. Cole, before we get into our predictions, I want to mention once again, spend a moment on Diego Pavia. Can he do it again, man? I mean, that's the question. Like, if you just want to oversimplify this whole game, can number 2 lead Vanderbilt to another monumental upset? That is the big question. He was special in that game against Alabama, and to pull an upset of that size, that magnitude, your special players have got to step up, make special plays. The legend is only growing, and I would say this, Cole, doubt Diego Pavia at your own risk at this point.
I think you're going to clip this, so I have to go ahead and get my rant pretty much rolling. There's something about having a junkyard dog mentality that either is indoctrinated in you from the second that you touch foot on a football field, or you never will have that type of bite. Diego Pavia has been doubted his entire career, all the way back to when he was playing football in high school and had to walk on to a junior college, win a championship there, and then carry that mentality over to Jerry Kill. He was nowhere near considered a front runner for the job. In fact, at one point, the guy who is leading the Vanderbilt Commodores in receiving yards was actually the favorite to be the starting quarterback. And they transitioned him to tight end because Eli Stowers realized, I have to go up against this kid. I got to go up against Baba Yaga. I'm not going to be able to survive that much longer. He's not only able to show you that he plays big in the primetime games, but he carries that same mentality in the lesser tier matchups. It was so easy for a guy like Diego Pavia to play down to the level of competition in a game against Kentucky. Nope, he delivered. It was so easy for him to play down to the level of competition in Ball State, knowing what you could do to look ahead for what could have been a game against the number one team in the country. No, he leads the team in rushing yards. He has a multiple touchdown game. He now currently is averaging over 4.3 yards per play on the ground. He still has 1,300 passing yards, 1 turnover on the year, and he has been the face of Commodore football. He has been the face of underdogs everywhere, and more importantly, he has shown you time and time again, count me out, watch me count myself in. It's not just against these SEC Yellowhammer State programs like Auburn and Alabama. It also is when he was at New Mexico State, beating up against Hugh Freeze at Liberty. And so if you want to be the reason that you're counting out Diego Pavia, do it with your own course of action. I'm not. I made a joke after the Georgia State game. If you feel like selling your Diego Pavia stock at this point, please, I will buy it at the most minimal value because I know that there's going to come a matchup where he comes and strikes. That matchup's arrived. It did 2 weeks ago against Alabama. It showed up 2 weeks ago as well against Kentucky. And it's going to show up on Saturday. It is. The beauty about having a guy with a junkyard dog mentality is that they're unrelentlessly never going to quit. They're never going to stop. They're going to fight until the final blow. Literally, the reason I call him Baba Yaga is because he's the boogeyman. You'll never see him coming. And at the time that you do, it's already too late.
Their mascot may be Commodores, but there's nothing more intimidating than a hungry pit bull back in a corner with a chip on his shoulder. That is exactly the mentality that you mentioned Diego Pavia and this Vandy team have been playing with. And finally, Cole, like we mentioned, top of the show, elephant in the room. Listen, I'm not trying to make this about me, Cole, but the SEC Unfiltered Tour run needs to be highlighted. As I talked earlier, 3 straight field stormings, 4 straight home winners. 3 of those were underdogs, by the way. I believe Bama was favored against Georgia, correct? No, they were the underdog as well, I think. I think they were the underdog as well. Georgia was favored in that football game. So 4 straight home underdogs that have all found ways to win. The SEC Unfiltered Tour, the run we're on, will be talked about for years on end. It's been the craziest thing I've ever experienced. Will it continue? Will it not? I have no idea, but it is worth highlighting going into this game because on a side note, LSU fans, Cole, begged me not to go to College Station. I got offered to be paid not to go, if you want to know how much people are believing in this. If there's anybody that believes in voodoo, obviously, it's going to be the folks down there in beautiful Baton Rouge. But either way, with that being said, feels like we could be in for a classic, or maybe Texas bounces back in a really, really big way and puts this thing to bed. Cole, that being said, let's lock in our predictions. Let's lock in our picks. I'm going to let you start. Texas, Vanderbilt, maybe a game that in the preseason, not much of it was thought. Now, one of the premier matchups, it feels like, of the weekend. Who comes out on top in Nashville?
It would be wrong for me to say I am doubting Diego Pavia. But I'm kind of doubting Diego Pavia. It would be wrong of me to say that I'm doubting Texas when I have been talking about them as a team that can easily come on into the SEC, take names, kick asses, and basically become the standard of what is the conference that just means more. But I am doubting Texas. And there's reasons for both. This is, again, another David versus Goliath moment in the history of college football for 2024. And the bottom line is that, Chris, David beat Goliath. He did it one time. We never saw round 2. Are we going to get to see what would have happened in round 2? More importantly, what are we going to get from Texas? Because Texas is a program that has been so well orchestrated over the last really 2 or 3 years to start figuring out what their mentality is going to be. And it's very Nick Saban-esque in terms of what Steve Sarkisian has implemented. We start off with the trenches. We start off with building up our defensive lines. We shore up our weaponry however we see fit. We make sure that our quarterback is content. He's poised. He's calm. He's collected. And then on defensively, we choose violence. And if we don't have those areas of strengths, we'll turn them into areas of strengths via the transfer portal. We'll target 8 or 9 cornerbacks in the recruiting trail because if we know that we want to be good at that level. I have been praising Texas for how much depth they have as an organization, how much they feel like a complete team. Yes, Oregon had the marquee win over Ohio State, but the one that looked the most consistently sound was Texas going into Austin last week. But there is something about Diego Pavia. There is something about this Vanderbilt team. There is something about Clark Lee really kind of going out with the bang. If this was supposed to be the year where he was on the hot seat, where he was starting to feel the pressure cooker, I'm going to do it my way. And if it doesn't work, well, at least I can say I went out on my terms. I went out with my persona. And I do believe that Vanderbilt is going to be bowl eligible. I do. I believe Vanderbilt's going to get at least 1, if not 2 more wins in the SEC. I've already chalked up that they're marching back into Jordan Hare Stadium, a place where Diego Pavia already has not just free admission, but he also probably owns a little bit of state property inside of the halls of that stadium. I believe they're going to get another win. It may be against Tennessee, the other UT. I just don't think it's against this UT. I don't. And because of the way I talk about the depth, the way I've talked about how I think Texas can play up to the level of competition, but they also can show that they are unfazed, that they do have a couple of minor miscues, and more importantly, the dominance of Georgia. We all were just foolish for doubting that to begin with. We don't need to doubt the Texas, what they have done. Playing against Oklahoma's defense, playing against a team like Michigan on the road. Regardless of that, we don't need to doubt this is going to be a game that Texas will wake up for. I think that Steve Sarkisian will have the Longhorns ready. I think that you will see Quinn Ewers back to the Quinn Ewers that we knew. It will be a 4-quarter game. I am going to take the 17.5 points. I am. I'm not going to doubt Diego Pavia and say that he's not going to keep this thing close. But I do believe that Texas, at the end of the day, Quinn Ewers shows you why he is QB1. You see Isaiah Bond connect for an easy 6 points. You watch his special team start to kind of deliver. I'm going to go final score 34-20 in this matchup. Still close down to the wire. Ultimately, a late touchdown to number 7 seals it.
Final score?
Oh, 34-20.
34-20. Okay.
Yeah, so still with the 17 points.
The
still
plus
not yeah.
The plus 17.5, I think, is a good play. I think that's a smart play, Cole. You know, you look at this game from a personnel standpoint. I'm very curious. You know, we saw Clark Lee was so good after, and this is a different beast than Alabama. I understand that, especially what we've seen in Alabama the last couple of weeks. But I thought Clark Lee was so good taking what he saw on film, implementing that, and really, I thought, exploiting some of Alabama's weaknesses. And they were the ones that didn't make the adjustments. Now, I trust Steve Sarkisian and his staff to make the adjustments more so than what I saw from Alabama in that game. It's going to take a similar recipe. It's going to take a similar formula for Vanderbilt to go out and pull off yet again another monumental upset. They're going to have to force some turnovers. They're going to have to get some short fields. They're going to have to score on the defensive side of the football. Diego Pavia is going to have to be Diego Pavia we saw against Alabama. He's going to have to just every single time you need a big play, every single time there's a question, he's got an answer to it. Every single time, you know, you need somebody to step up. Number 2 is leading the way. He also needs some other guys around him, the guys like Skinner, the guys like, you know, Cedric Alexander at the running back position. He's going to need his playmakers around him, and obviously guys on defense, CJ Taylor to Ricky Wright in the back end, leading the way back there as well. I think Vanderbilt can pull this upset, Cole. I really do. I think there's a path to it. I think anybody that's looking at this game think this is going to be a 30 or 40 point smattering or just a blowout type of game. I think you're missing the mark here. How does Texas respond? And again, it's 2 teams on 2 different wavelengths, with Texas coming off, you know, being punched in the face by Georgia. Vanderbilt ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2014. Cole, then there's the dynamic of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. And this run that we've been on has been insane. I mean, really, I'm not just saying this because it's SEC Unfiltered or it's me traveling these games. It's just genuinely been nuts that week after week after week, I have found myself, hey, here's another SEC game coming down to the final play or plays. Hey, here's another field that we're being rushed. We're going down in the field for. It has been absolutely crazy. And Cole, you know, as they say, unfortunately, all great things must come to an end.
There it is.
On that note, stand by for one moment, please.
Oh, no. Oh, he's pulling at me. I have no idea what's going on. If I'm the one that's doubting Diego Pavia, God, I'm never going to hear the end of it from Commodore Country.
Cole, that moment's going to happen.
God bless.
But it ain't going to happen this week, Cole. It ain't going to happen this week, Cole. That Vanderbilt V pulls the upset again. I'm not doubting Diego Pavia as I'm wearing a helmet that's way too small for my head, cutting off my circulation. Doesn't matter. The SEC Unfiltered Tour rolls on. Vanderbilt 26, Texas 24. Doubt us at your own risk. And if you do, we might be coming for your team next. That Vandy v. Clarkley gets it done. It's the year of the door, baby. Year of the door. We'll see you at First Bank.
I'm going to start thinking everyone is going to pay for you not to come to their stadium.
Man, that hurt. All right.
They're going to start paying for us to stay away. We're going to have to miss some of the
Shout out to the folks of Vandy football that sent me this over the summer. Hey, I had no idea it being used today, but you know what? I looked over and said, hey, the time is now. Again, this has been a wacky college football season, Cole. I think Vandy finds a way, gets it done. And you know what else, too? I'll say this, Cole. In life, you realize at times, you know, there are very few opportunities. I'm going to have very few of these opportunities. The amount of opportunities I'm going to get to realistically pick Vanderbilt to beat Texas and going to be in attendance to watch it are very few and far between. This is the best shot they've got. Diego Pavia, nobody loves being a double-digit dog more than he does. They get it done 26-24.
You're going to get...
My heart is pounding.
You're going to be... Here's the deal. You're going to be so rich very soon. Because what's going to happen is fan bases that are on the precipice of missing the college football playoff are going to start Venmoing you not to come to their city. They'll say, send Cole, send Dave, send one of them on the tour because of their bad mojo has not sucked in just yet. Longhorn fans everywhere are going to hate you. I'm going to have to save us. I'm going to have to be the reason why we are still managing. You know what? It's not a bad pick. If there was ever a time to doubt Diego Pavia, this was not the one. And yet here I am offering him NIL deals, offering him a full ride spot as being the Thompson Tech Red Wolves starting quarterback. And yet now I have to see him earn it one more time. And that is just disrespectful on my part. Don't think it's going to happen, but never say never in this crazy world of college football 2024.
And in closing, Cole, I would say this. Can't wait to hang out all the great Commodores this weekend. And Longhorns, by the way. Longhorns, just know, it's all love. Don't blame us. Blame the SEC Unfiltered Tour.
100%.
Guys, let us know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you see this one playing out at First Bank Stadium when Texas and Vanderbilt do battle? Guys, that's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get those. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.